Thank you for this clarification, Christina. Now we move straight away to the keynote speaker of this conference. The keynote speaker is Seda Röder. Seda, she is the founder and CEO of Sonophilia Foundation in Germany. She is a pianist, composer, an innovator, and creator, and also connector. And then what her work has been trying to do is to create impact, starting from creativity and really enlarging to well-being. And this is what we discussed yesterday, going beyond specific economic value creation and trying really to have an impact through the CCI or through arts, creativity and culture to the communities and to the regions where you are connected. Of course, the well-being approach, it's much broader than what I call the pure economic growth. Of course, we need economic growth to reach well-being, flourishing, resilient economies. But well-being is important nowadays because we have to think of other components rather than the pure value creation, which is good for viability. But then we need to go a bit further into well-being. And this is a concept on which we at EMEA is working with other colleagues to define and really to mainstream in economic policy. So what is well-being and how, for example, creativity, eventually culture, entrepreneurship could be vectors of it, but not only. So Seda, we're very happy to have you here today with us, here from Barcelona. Next time it would be great to have you among us here in São Paulo, the Center of Creativity and Culture in Catalonia. So please, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I hope you can all hear me well. Just give me a sign. Okay. Let me share my screen. Okay. Right. Can you see everything? Or do you see that little funny screen in front? I'm not hearing.
We're not seeing your screen yet.
You're not seeing my screen yet. Interesting. Okay.
Can you try to share it again?
Yes. How about now?
Yes, we can see it.
Excellent. Okay, great. So thank you very much for your invite. I'm really happy to be part of your annual meeting. And I'm going to be talking about, creativity beyond its economic value, but also from different perspectives. I think well-being is actually an outcome out of creative activities and out of how we integrate creative activities into our day-to-day life. But I think it's, to start with, going to be very important to try to redefine creativity beyond the typical realm of arts. Because when most people think about creativity, unfortunately, they actually think about it as a replacement word for arts or artistic output in its expanded form. For instance, even when we define creative industries, I think we're limiting the benefits of creativity to occupations and products that have a large intersection with artistic output, such as design, marketing, advertising, crafts, fashion, performing arts, film, games, or architecture, and many more. But creativity is much more than arts, of course. It's everywhere. We share 98% of our genetic makeup, our genome, with chimpanzees, and everything, that 2%, is what makes the difference. And all that 2% is about creativity, about the things that touch us, that move us, that inspire us, that is innovative, that's progressive, that makes our stories. All of that is grounded in our creativity. And I think, therefore, we really have to define every industry as creative industry. Why? Well, because every industry today is terribly under pressure to innovate. But unfortunately, many leaders have forgotten where innovations come from. They've forgotten that innovative solutions won't appear out of thin air, but they're fruits of human creativity. They've forgotten that innovation is not a mechanical process, but it's a human process. It's not going to happen just because you have the latest tools. It's going to happen because you feed people's imagination. Because behind all innovations, there is a person or a group of people who are creative, resilient, who are able to imagine, search, and build a better future. But we have a creativity crisis. And that creativity crisis is not that we don't have enough creativity. The problem is that our systems are built in such a way that we make it extremely difficult for truly creative people to take part in the innovation process. We have built systems that are full with very powerful gatekeepers, but every now and then someone manages to hack the system. This little girl, her name is Guadalupe Cruz. She's now 10 years old. And a couple of years ago, she won as the first child ever the Nuclear Science Award at the National University of Mexico. And she was recognized as an outstanding young innovator by the Time magazine because she constructed a solar-powered heating device, which she calls the warm bath, for her community. This is a tiny device made out of trash that can heat water up to 65 liters of water up to 70 degrees within a pretty short amount of time. So it's extremely helpful for her community where there is no warm water coming out of taps. But unfortunately, when it comes to permeation of creativity, not every person is as lucky as she was. This gentleman here, his name is Thomas Royan. Maybe you've heard of him because he was all over the newspapers in Germany, especially. He was retired. He's retired for more than 10 years now. And in his retirement time, he solved one of the biggest math problems, the Gaussian correlation inequality, in the garden, while he was doing garden work. And he wanted to publish his solution in peer-reviewed journals. And you can imagine what happened. So when he tried to publish his solution, no one cared because he was an absolutely no name in the field of statistics. But he said, I have nothing to lose. I'm going to publish this anyways. And he goes to this obscure Indian journal and pays for his solution to be published. And in the meantime, the math world keeps working on the same problem, spending tax money for something that's been already solved. And 2 more years pass until 2 Polish young mathematicians figure out this journal and see that the problem they have been working on for such a long time has already been solved. Here are 2. Everybody knows them. One of them is a very famous singer-songwriter, Alicia Keys, and a novelist, Toni Morrison. They both come from lower middle class, working class families. Alicia Keys lived with her mother in Hell's Kitchen in New York, brutal life in Manhattan. Toni Morrison had to also go through segregation and racism in its most terrible form in Ohio. However, they both made it to Ivy League universities. Alicia was at Columbia and Toni Morrison went to Cornell. And, when we think about these people, we think of them as very inspiring stories. We find their stories really beautiful and interesting because they're coming from the left field, from poor background, making it to the top. But to me, they're actually proof of how wrong our systems are. We build mountains that are almost impossible for people to climb up. And when they make it, when they come from left field, when they come from underprivileged backgrounds and make it to the top, we celebrate them because they made it against all odds. We made it so difficult, but they made it anyway. So I think, to put it mildly, this is a crazy, crazy buildup. I think we really need to work on this. And also statistically, it's not very good what we are doing, because we are preventing more people from entering the innovation and creation landscape. We're cutting down, so to speak, our own branch. According to the Federal Statistics Agency in Austria, for instance, we have approximately 10 million people worldwide, scientists, engineers, or otherwise, we call them qualified people, working on innovation, research, development related to medicine, pharma, social sciences, technology, mobility, new materials, service innovation, and environmental issues. In Austria, for instance, we take pride that there are 260,000 people approximately working in any kind of research and development field in governmental, academic, non-profit, and private sectors. So every sector, we have approximately 250 people who are qualified to work in innovation fields. This is approximately 2.5% of the entire Austrian population. And when we adopt this number on a global scale, 10 million people in a world where 7 billion are living is approximately 0.2% working in innovation related fields actively. This is, I think, really a very tiny number of people who are holding our future in their hands. And I mean, if we were to take that number really seriously, that would mean that in a room where we are right now, all of us together, there would not be one significant person statistically allowed to work in innovation. So I think that is a very important thing. When we look at this from business perspective, you know, we're outsourcing creativity and innovation to a handful people. And according to research done by the famous Dartmouth professor Vijay Govindajaran, he says that in a typical work environment, in a typical city, in a typical organization, in any format of gathering of people, there should be approximately 5% born innovators. And all of those people would make excellent entrepreneurs. You know, their creativity could bring tremendous value to business, to life, to community life. However, most companies, most cities, most environments are not built for co-creation. They're extremely hierarchical, and, you know, we are basically as a society almost unable to realize and execute on this kind of creative potential. So what we have is not that we don't have enough people. What we have is the problem that our systems won't allow creativity to flourish and permeate. And actually, we could have many more people contributing to solutions. World Economic Forum puts creativity to the top 5 skills of the future. In 2018, it even increased to the number 3. However, only 1 out of 4 people have the feeling that they can live up to their creative potential. This is research done by Adobe. It's a creativity study. And I think this is really alarming, because the result is, you know, what we call quiet quitting and huge decrease in employee engagement, which is costing companies billions and billions euros every year. IBM even puts creativity more important than typical managerial skills, because according to the Creativity and Wellbeing Hallmark Research Initiative at the University of Melbourne, creativity optimizes cognitive and emotional functions. It strengthens a sense of identity. It nurtures intellectual growth and social bonds, and it enhances personal and social resilience. And we all know that it does this exactly. We don't need the studies to be proofs of all of these outcomes ourselves. But finally, people are looking at into the field of creativity more seriously. And latest findings show also that thousands of people during the COVID pandemic lockdowns maintained their mental health and social bonds with creativity. So they were expressing themselves through creative activities, and that was helping them to relieve stress and anxiety, lessen shame, anger, depression after experiencing such a traumatic event. But there are more benefits to creativity. It also helps us imagine a desirable future. A group of scholars from Princeton, Dartmouth, UCLA, and Northwestern showed a couple of years ago that there is a place in our brain, in the prefrontal cortex, that is extremely active when we do what is called distance imaging. That means you're imagining a future you're definitely not going to experience yourself. So you're looking into the future 100, 200, 300 years from now. And they've figured out that creative people who have trained their creativity consciously and actively, they have an ease in accessing this neural network much easily in a default mode than people who are not trained in creative activities. The control group, for instance, they were not practicing this kind of distant imaging skills, and they were only able to access their distant imaging center in their brain when they were daydreaming or almost asleep. So when they were awake, they had great difficulties imagining a future even in 2-3 days, let alone 2-3 years. Why does this matter? Well, I think we're actually experience the implications of not having practiced this kind of distant imaging skills in our brains from the generations that came before us. So people think in extremely short terms, and they might say, some people in business, they think this is probably useless, but and who cares about 100 years? But our children, they will care about what's going to be happening in 100 years, right? So therefore, before finishing also my presentation, I would like to say a few words about also the foundation's work at the Sonophilia Foundation. We are a non-profit organization with our base in Germany, in Munich. And our aim is to bring scientific insights, such as the ones I just mentioned before, to the attention of the general public and policymakers. I would like to say one thing that's really, really important because sustainable development goals have been mentioned probably many times in the course of the last 2 days. When you look at the document that has been published a couple of years ago, containing the 17 goals and 139, I think, sub-goals, and it's a pretty substantial document talking about innovation, the future, our problem solving, health, poverty, water. These are all extremely important problems. However, not once in that document we'll read the word creativity. And I'm asking myself, how are we going to be changing the future? How are we going to be finding solutions and bringing better education and better health services to everyone if we do not nourish creativity in education more consciously? So I think that's really, really important. And to that end, the Sonophilia Foundation gives out scholarships. We, publish books, we provide grants for researchers. And the idea is to make creativity a little bit more tangible, because it's a very ungraspable field filled with wrong assumptions and myths for many people still. And especially when it comes to Europe, we're still really lagging behind the US and Israel, for instance, where they're leading in scientific research of creativity, partly backed by military research grants. In the US alone, there are more than 20 specialized institutions doing creativity and neuroscience research, creativity and cognition research. I think in Europe, there are almost 4 or 5 to be taken seriously institutions looking into creativity, mostly from a psychological point of view, and there is nothing that really looks into it from a neuro perspective. And in Europe, we're still fighting to make creativity a legitimate scientific field. And our aim with the foundation is to change that. We have over 50 benefactors from all over the world, some of them sitting in the room today with you. And I'm really, really happy if any one of you wants to join us. Just this is the short advertising break. And for instance, Germany just recently announced a huge, I think, 5 billion euro fund for digitization for schools, providing every child with digital tools, with iPads, with all sorts of accesses to internet. However, they're totally forgetting that data and numbers are just noise. What you can do with them is all about imagination. And to that end, I would like to finish with Einstein's word. He said, imagination is more important than knowledge because knowledge is limited. Thank you so much, and I'm wishing you a great day.
Thank you very much, Seda, for this very inspiring talk. And I think this gives really a great focus on the concept of creativity. And it's very interesting that, as you mentioned, the two countries that are really leading the creativity research are United States and Israel for military reasons. So we are still really devoted very much into dealing with military objectives for security matters. And I think this also tells that creativity could also be a lever to achieve certain objectives. Of course, security matters are important to keep safe for all the national populations in a fragmented manner. I mean, still, I believe that everyone is looking for his own interest or national interest as security in terms of security, but then we need to think a bit beyond those narrow-minded type of thinking, where we need probably to go a bit beyond and think about collective creativity. So my question to you, collective creativity to respond to societal challenges, actually our current societal challenges, mainly aging populations, problems of food security, problems of environmental hazard. What we can see, for example, the frequency of physical kind of extreme risks are going up, and even reinsurance market, it's really getting disrupted. So we have no way anymore to ensure the extreme risk. So how do you see really creativity and culture, whatever you define culture, as a response to these challenges, and how also entrepreneurs could, instead of really thinking of a very tiny objective within their endeavors, could also respond to those challenges from their own perspective and from their own country's needs?
Thank you. That's a brilliant question, and that's a very difficult question, of course. On the one hand, you're addressing with your question the realm of collective creativity, which also includes, for instance, citizen science. I think we see very, very great examples from NASA, from the Protein Fold projects, from different institutions. One of them that is very dear to me, which deals with geopolitical risks, is called the Good Judgment Project. Again, backed from US military funds, from DARPA. However, still very relevant and a great example of how you can unleash collective creativity and diverse creativity in the society to address geopolitical risks, interesting predictions about topics that are so-called wicked domains. So you don't know the question, you don't know the answer, everything can go in every kind of direction, but you are including people and you're not superimposing the questions from above. I think that's a big issue we need to address when we're asking ourselves how to deal with sustainability issues, how to deal with climate issues, because people need to still feel that they have agency themselves in defining and addressing their problems in their own communities, rather than a larger institution coming from above and telling them what their problem is, and here is the solution we brought to you and you have to accept it. So that's one issue. The other thing you're addressing is the social impact and in entrepreneurship. That's a totally different funding related question. I think we need to bring in a new kind of mindset for venture capitalists. We need to bring in a new kind of mindset for young entrepreneurs, that at the end of the day, we all have a responsibility towards our planet, towards other people. Again, I think those are the values we have to start living in our school systems, in our business systems, in our education systems, rather than just talking about them. We have to be, all of us, we have to start being really role models. Unfortunately, I'm not seeing many of that happening right now. So that is probably an even bigger problem to be addressed.
Thank you very much, Seda, for this, again, very inspiring talk. Of course, there are a lot of work to be done, and I'm also very happy to have our colleagues here, Theo and Harris Iyer. We are trying to really dig a bit further into creativity from a multidisciplinary approach, including neuroscience and neuroscience-based policy approach, which will enhance our, I would say, business and management and economic approaches toward mainstreaming new thinking, innovative thinking, eventually creative thinking into the basis of the economic model that we would like to be transformative and responding to our societal challenges. So thank you very much for this, and we will be in touch, possibly to work together to this hopefully endeavor that would make things change, and very happy to have you here today. So I would like